Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into the life of a man who changed the world forever, Henry Ford. By watching this video, you'll not only improve your English, but also gain valuable insights into one of the most influential figures in industrial history. Imagine a time when automobiles were a luxury only the wealthy could afford. Roads were filled with horse-drawn carriages, and travel was slow, uncomfortable, and limited. Then came a man with a revolutionary vision, a man who believed that cars should be accessible to everyone, not just the elite. His name? Henry Ford. Ford didn't just build cars, he built an entire system that would redefine the way industries operated. His innovations in mass production, his radical ideas about efficiency, and his controversial beliefs made him a figure of both admiration and criticism. But no matter how you see him, one thing is undeniable: Henry Ford changed the world. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Have you ever wondered how a single idea can revolutionize an entire industry? Let's explore the story of Henry Ford and find out. Henry Ford was born on July 30, 1863, in a small farmhouse in Greenfield Township, Michigan. His parents, William and Mary Ford, were Irish immigrants who worked hard to maintain their farm. Life in the late 19th century was simple but demanding, and young Henry grew up in an environment where manual labor was a daily necessity. However, from an early age, Ford showed little interest in farming. Instead, he was drawn to machinery, gears, and the inner workings of mechanical devices. Unlike most boys his age, who saw machines as mere tools, Henry saw them as opportunities to make life easier, faster, and more efficient. At the age of 12, he took apart and reassembled a pocket watch, not just for fun, but out of genuine curiosity about how it functioned. This fascination with mechanics would define the rest of his life. His formal education was limited. He attended a one-room schoolhouse and learned the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, but he never had an interest in academia. Instead, his real education came from hands-on experiences. At 16, he left home and moved to Detroit to work as an apprentice machinist. The bustling city, filled with factories and industry, was a stark contrast to the quiet life of the farm. Ford quickly adapted, absorbing every bit of knowledge he could about mechanical engineering and industrial production. His first job was at James F. Flower & Brothers, a company that specialized in metalwork. Later, he worked for the Detroit Dry Dock Company, where he honed his skills in operating and repairing steam engines. These years were crucial in shaping his understanding of mechanical engineering. Unlike many of his peers, Ford wasn't content with simply doing his job. He constantly questioned how things could be improved, how machines could be made more efficient, and how labor could be optimized. Despite his success in Detroit, Ford never completely abandoned his rural roots. He frequently visited his family's farm and used his newfound skills to repair farming equipment, making them more efficient. This blend of rural practicality and industrial ambition gave him a unique perspective. He saw firsthand how machinery could revolutionize both the factory and the farm. By the time he reached his early 20s, Ford had developed a deep passion for engines, particularly gasoline-powered ones. The idea that a self-propelled vehicle could replace the horse-drawn carriage fascinated him. At the time, automobiles were considered luxury items, handcrafted and expensive, available only to the wealthy. But Ford had a vision. He believed that automobiles should be accessible to everyone, not just the elite. His curiosity led him to work at the Edison Illuminating Company in 1891, where he was quickly promoted to chief engineer. This position provided him with the financial stability and time to experiment with internal combustion engines. By 1896, he had built his first experimental car, the quadricycle. It was a simple, lightweight vehicle with 4 bicycle wheels and a small gasoline engine, but it was a glimpse into the future. Ford had taken his first step toward revolutionizing transportation. However, his journey was far from easy. Many people doubted his vision, believing that automobiles would never replace horses. Investors were hesitant, and failures were common. But Ford was relentless. His experiences growing up on a farm had taught him the value of perseverance, and his years in Detroit had given him the technical expertise to refine his ideas. Henry Ford was not just an inventor, he was a visionary. He didn't just want to build cars, he wanted to change the way the world moved. And with the quadricycle, he had proven to himself that his dream was possible. This was just the beginning. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, setbacks, and groundbreaking innovations that would change history forever. After building his first experimental automobile, Henry Ford became obsessed with perfecting his designs and bringing his vision to life. However, passion alone was not enough. To truly make an impact, he needed capital, resources, and the right business environment to turn his ideas into a reality. By the late 1890s, the automobile industry was in its infancy, and the few cars that existed were expensive, unreliable, and difficult to manufacture. Ford, however, believed that automobiles could be produced on a much larger scale, making them affordable for the average American. To achieve this, he sought financial backing and partners who believed in his vision. In 1899, he co-founded the Detroit Automobile Company with a group of investors. This was Ford's first real opportunity to build cars for the market rather than for personal experimentation. However, the company struggled. The cars they produced were too expensive and lacked reliability. Ford was frustrated by the slow progress and the high costs of production. After just a year, the company collapsed. It was a humiliating setback, but Ford was undeterred. Instead of giving up, he took the lessons he had learned from his first failure and refined his approach. He realized that speed, efficiency, and cost-effectiveness were the key factors that would determine success in the automobile industry. He focused on designing a car that was simpler, more reliable, and easier to manufacture. In 1901, with the financial support of new investors, Ford tried again. This time, he built a high-performance racing car called the 999. The car was designed for speed, and Ford personally drove it in a race, setting a record for the fastest mile at the time. The victory gained him widespread attention and credibility in the industry. Investors started seeing Ford as more than just an inventor. He was now a businessman with the potential to dominate the market. With his growing reputation, Ford co-founded the Henry Ford Company in 1901. However, conflicts with investors over control and direction led to Ford leaving the company just a year later. The company was later reorganized into what became the Cadillac Automobile Company. Ford had once again lost control of his own project, but he had not lost his determination. In 1903, Henry Ford made his third and most significant attempt at creating an automobile business. Alongside a group of investors, he established the Ford Motor Company. This time, he was determined to do things differently. Rather than focusing on luxury cars for the wealthy, he aimed to produce a vehicle that was affordable, practical, and accessible to the masses. The first successful car produced by Ford Motor Company was the Model A, introduced in 1903. Unlike earlier models, the Model A was designed for efficiency and ease of use. It quickly gained popularity, proving that there was a market for affordable automobiles. Ford's company began growing steadily, and production increased. However, Ford was not satisfied. He knew that if he wanted to truly change the world, he needed to create something revolutionary, something that could be mass-produced at an unprecedented scale. That opportunity came in 1908 with the introduction of the Model T. It was a simple, durable, and affordable car that changed the landscape of transportation forever. The Model T was designed with everyday Americans in mind, offering a reliable vehicle that families, farmers, and workers could afford. The initial price was $825, significantly lower than most automobiles at the time. But Ford wasn't just thinking about the product, he was thinking about the process. As demand for the Model T skyrocketed, Ford faced a new challenge: how to produce enough cars quickly and efficiently to meet consumer demand. This challenge would lead to one of the most important innovations in industrial history, the assembly line. Ford had finally built a company that could sustain his vision. But his greatest achievement was yet to come. As the demand for the Model T soared, Henry Ford realized that traditional manufacturing methods were too slow and inefficient to keep up. At the time, automobile production was a labor-intensive process where skilled craftsmen assembled cars piece by piece. This made the process expensive and time-consuming, limiting the number of vehicles that could be produced. Ford knew that if he wanted to make automobiles truly affordable, he had to revolutionize the way they were built. His answer was mass production. Ford didn't invent the concept, but he perfected it in a way that had never been done before. Inspired by the continuous flow methods used in meat-packing plants and other industries, he envisioned a system where each worker would specialize in a single task, and the car would move to them rather than workers moving around the factory. This idea led to the creation of the first moving assembly line, in 1913, at the Ford Highland Park plant in Michigan. The assembly line was a game-changer. Instead of taking over 12 hours to build a single car, the process was reduced to just 93 minutes. Workers no longer had to walk around looking for parts or tools, everything was brought to them in a precise, coordinated sequence. Each worker became highly skilled at a specific task, increasing both speed and efficiency. This innovation drastically lowered production costs. As a result, Ford was able to reduce the price of the Model T from $825 in 1908 to just $260 by 1925, making it affordable for the average American worker. This was a revolutionary moment. Not only did Ford create a product that changed society, but he also changed the way products were made. But Ford's impact wasn't just about machines, it was also about people. In 1914, he introduced the $5 workday, doubling the average wage of his factory workers. At the time, this was unheard of, and many business leaders criticized him for it. However, Ford saw it as a strategic move. Higher wages meant that workers could afford to buy the very cars they were producing. This created a new economic model where mass production and mass consumption fueled each other, paving the way for the modern middle class. The results were staggering. Productivity increased, worker loyalty improved, and turnover rates dropped significantly. More importantly, Ford's innovations laid the foundation for the industrial world we know today. His methods were quickly adopted by other industries, from appliances to electronics, shaping the future of manufacturing across the globe. However, with great success came challenges. The assembly line, while efficient, also made work monotonous and repetitive. Many workers found the job exhausting and unfulfilling, leading to dissatisfaction. Ford's strict policies on discipline and behavior in the workplace also sparked controversy. Despite this, the Model T continued to dominate the market. By 1927, Ford had sold over 15 million Model Ts, making it one of the most successful vehicles in history. Ford's innovation didn't just change the automobile industry, it changed the way the world worked. Factories became more productive, products became cheaper, and consumer culture expanded like never before. The idea of efficiency and automation that Ford championed would go on to define the modern era. But not everything in Ford's career was as bright as his industrial achievements. Despite his genius in engineering and business, he would soon face challenges that would tarnish his reputation. His controversial views, rigid business practices, and inability to adapt to changing times would lead to conflicts and setbacks. The next chapter of his life would be filled with controversy, struggles, and hard lessons. Despite his groundbreaking achievements in manufacturing and business, Henry Ford was not without controversy. His strong opinions, rigid management style, and controversial ideological beliefs would cast a shadow over his legacy. While he transformed the automotive industry, his actions and views on labor relations, politics, and society would spark intense debates that continue to this day. One of the biggest challenges Ford faced was labor unrest. While his introduction of the $5 workday had initially improved morale, the repetitive nature of assembly line work took a toll on workers. The relentless pace and lack of variety in tasks led to dissatisfaction. Ford, however, was not known for compromise. He demanded absolute efficiency and discipline in his factories, implementing strict policies to ensure productivity. To maintain control, Ford employed the Ford Sociological Department, a team that monitored workers' lifestyles, ensuring they adhered to a strict moral code. Employees were expected to avoid drinking, gambling, and even certain social behaviors deemed inappropriate by Ford's standards. While these policies were framed as an effort to improve workers' lives, they were widely criticized as invasive and authoritarian. Ford's approach to labor relations became even more controversial during the rise of labor unions. As union movements gained strength in the 1930s, Ford resisted them aggressively. Unlike other major automakers, who eventually negotiated with unions, Ford refused to recognize them and fought back using force. His head of security, Harry Bennett, led an army of enforcers known for their brutal tactics against union organizers. The most infamous incident occurred in 1937, when Ford's security team violently attacked union activists, in what became known as the Battle of the Overpass. The violent crackdown severely damaged Ford's reputation, painting him as an enemy of workers' rights. Beyond labor disputes, Ford's ideological beliefs also drew controversy. He was an outspoken anti-Semite, and during the 1920s, he used his personal newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, to publish a series of anti-Semitic articles. The newspaper ran for years, spreading conspiracy theories and hateful rhetoric. Ford's writings were later compiled into a book titled The International Jew, which was widely circulated and even praised by Adolf Hitler. In fact, Hitler once referred to Ford as an inspiration, and a framed picture of Henry Ford was reportedly kept in Hitler's office. These associations severely tarnished Ford's image. Although he later issued a formal apology and claimed he had not personally written the articles, the damage had been done. Many believed his apology was insincere and merely an attempt to protect his business interests. The controversy surrounding his anti-Semitic views remains one of the darkest aspects of his legacy. Ford also struggled with adapting to a changing world. As competitors like General Motors began offering more stylish and innovative cars, Ford stubbornly clung to the Model T. For years, he refused to introduce new models, believing that the Model T was all people needed. But consumer preferences were evolving, and by the late 1920s, Ford was losing ground. Sales declined, and Ford was eventually forced to discontinue the Model T in 1927. Even as Ford introduced new models, his rigid leadership style stifled innovation. His refusal to delegate power and his distrust of new ideas led to a decline in the company's dominance. By the 1940s, Ford Motor Company was no longer the industry leader it once was, and the company struggled to keep up with modern manufacturing trends. As Ford aged, his influence within the company waned. His son, Edsel Ford, attempted to modernize the company, but Henry often interfered, undermining his son's decisions. Tragically, Edsel died of stomach cancer in 1943, and the elder Ford was devastated. By this point, his health was also in decline, and he was no longer the same visionary leader he had once been. By 1945, Ford's grandson, Henry Ford II, took over the company, effectively ending Henry Ford's direct control. The once mighty industrial titan had become a relic of a past era, out of touch with the changing world. His final years were spent in relative seclusion, and he passed away in 1947 at the age of 83. Despite his flaws, Ford's impact on the world was undeniable. But was he a hero of industrial progress, or a ruthless businessman with dangerous beliefs? His legacy remains a subject of debate, and his story serves as both an inspiration and a cautionary tale. In the next chapter, we will explore the lasting impact of Henry Ford, how his innovations shaped the modern world and how his controversial actions continue to spark discussion to this day. Henry Ford's death in 1947 marked the end of an era, but his influence has never faded. The world he left behind was vastly different from the one he was born into, a world where automobiles were no longer a luxury, but a necessity, where assembly lines fueled industrial progress, and where the modern economy revolved around mass production and mass consumption. His vision had reshaped society, and his name became synonymous with innovation and efficiency. One of Ford's most enduring legacies is the way he revolutionized manufacturing. The assembly line became the gold standard for industries far beyond automobiles. Everything from household appliances to electronics, and even food production, adopted Ford's principles of efficiency and standardization. His innovations made products cheaper, more accessible, and available to millions, creating the consumer-driven economy that defines the modern world. Ford also played a crucial role in shaping the modern workforce. By introducing the $5 workday, he not only improved wages for his employees, but also set a precedent for fair wages and better working conditions across industries. The idea that workers should be paid well enough to afford the products they make was a radical concept at the time, but it became a cornerstone of modern economics. His policies contributed to the rise of the middle class, allowing ordinary people to enjoy a higher standard of living. However, Ford's legacy is not without its darker aspects. His staunch opposition to labor unions, his authoritarian leadership style, and his anti-Semitic writings remain a stain on his reputation. While his contributions to industry are undeniable, his personal beliefs and actions have been widely criticized. Many historians argue that his unwillingness to adapt to changing times, both in business and in social progress, ultimately led to the decline of his influence in later years. Even Ford's own company had to evolve beyond his vision. Under the leadership of his grandson, Henry Ford II, Ford Motor Company modernized its business practices, embraced unionization, and became a more competitive player in the automotive industry. The company that Henry Ford built continued to thrive, but it had to move past many of the rigid principles that he once held dear. Despite these contradictions, Ford's impact on the world remains enormous. Today, Ford Motor Company continues to be one of the leading automobile manufacturers in the world, a testament to the strength of the foundation he built. His ideas about efficiency, affordability, and innovation continue to influence industries across the globe. Perhaps the most telling sign of Ford's legacy is how his innovations continue to inspire. Modern electric vehicle manufacturers, automation experts, and industrial designers still look to Ford's methods for guidance. The idea that products should be accessible to the masses, that production should be as efficient as possible, and that technology should drive human progress, all of these principles remain at the heart of modern industry. So, was Henry Ford a genius or a tyrant? A visionary or a flawed businessman? The truth is, he was all of these things. His story is one of brilliance and ambition, but also of controversy and rigidity. His impact is undeniable, but so are the lessons from his mistakes. As we look at the world today, where automation, efficiency, and industrialization continue to shape our lives, one thing is clear: Henry Ford's vision still drives us forward. The world moves faster, industries operate smoother, and people live differently because of one man's obsession with innovation. What do you think of Henry Ford's legacy? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more stories about the figures who changed history. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.